I wonder if people who are decided on a career in academia, right, would not choose the path of least resistance. I mean,
Right.
for people who know the game and people
Mm,
who want to reach somewhere, right, whether it's in management or it's in academia, uh,
mm,
there is a path that they can take
mm,
where they can sacrifice the interest. Lots of
mm.
scholars can sacrifice their interest for several decades until a time maybe when they are near retirement or when they have retired, then they do something that they enjoy, right?
Yeah.
And I guess that's a lot similar to what people do in general
Mm,
in their jobs, right? They
mm,
sacrifice their interests for wages, for promotion. This would lead to a new breed, a new culture of research,
mm,
right?
mm.
Where especially today, where there is this culture of, excessive publishing, um,
Sure.
where the urge is to just publish what is already publishable,
Mm,
uh, and to read what is already being read by the majority. In other words, the status quo,
mm,
right? And that makes academia, uh, which is already inherently conservative, a lot more so, and it makes it
mm.
harder for those who want to pursue their interests, though. So that's my
Sure.
question about it, right? That it is not about the person ultimately. Would you not be better off, right? For example, if you go back to teaching and to stay a bit further away from the academic field, which is not the only way to look at history, for example.
No, absolutely. I think yeah, if we were to talk about what is the most prudent, practical,
Mm,
you know, way to go about things, then none of this is, particularly practical, right? One would be much better off with an iron bow career of sorts, right?
mm,
Wherein the trajectory is fairly already established, and you are assured of a solid source of income for the rest of your life. And I think there is a certain amount of privilege that comes with being able to choose and explore and chart one's journey as well. That, you know, undeniably so. I think I come from a place of privilege in that I've been able to do that, in that I've been able to weather uncertainties thrown my way, with the surety that if this does not amount to anything, then I'm still going to be okay. And that's not a luxury that everyone can claim. So I do understand that, it's not something that can be taken for granted. It is not something that I would advise younger scholars to do. But having said that, I think that in the interest of research, if we are to publish and put out anything that is truly meaningful, and it's becoming increasingly difficult to do that and to see research that is truly exciting, much of it is, in my opinion at least, what I call derived research or derivative research, that in a sense, is a rehashing of something that has already been said in a different way, in different words perhaps, but that is not unique, or that is not otherwise stimulating. So I think, in the interest of keeping that kind of research and the quest for that kind of research alive, perhaps we can explore ways that allow us to do both, right? That speak to the field that has already been established, but propose new ways of getting to that with new approaches, new methodology. Um, while it is not easy per se, for a breed of scholars at least, it can be immensely fulfilling. Because we were drawn to research in the first place, I would like to believe, not because it is necessarily the most practical way forward, but because we are drawn by the thrill of finding something that we didn't expect out there.
mm. Yeah. Derivative research. I like that. I'm going to use that. Uh, I do agree that, right, we need mavericks, we need outliers. So as long as you are aware that that's
Mm.
where you are, right, and you
Right.
are happy with that position,
Sure.
yeah.
One needs to make peace with that as well, I
Right,
think.
exactly. Um, let's talk about the issue that's related to that, right, which is the Iron Bowl. When I first met you, it was in Hong Kong, and I know that
Right.
now currently in Singapore. Of course, we are both in Singapore,
Yes.
and I know that you have applied for jobs, many jobs, and sometimes that has not been successful. Same with me, and it's a very common experience for many scholars, young scholars especially. Tell us about the struggles that you've had finding a place in academia.
Oh, yes. Certainly. So I had to apply, for jobs for many years without any end in sight. Uh, I had a friend slash colleague at Hong Kong who said that he got his job at Hong Kong University after 51 rejections. And I remember this because the number stuck with me. Yeah. For me, it's not been anywhere near that number. It's far lower. Um, but the prospect of going through rejections for
Mm,
as much as a decade is a daunting one, but it is also very real, especially when one has a family, when one is rooted, when one cannot just take off and do a postdoc, for instance, right? Which adds to that uncertainty that much more. So I think this is again where one must ask themselves if the thrill or the lure or the draw of research is great enough that it will allow them to
mm,
withstand these uncertainties and the
mm,
anxiety which is very real. The prospect of having invested so much time and so much money, because no matter what scholarship one receives, there is a fair bit of financial
mm,
commitment or opportunity cost that goes into doing a PhD. Whether that is worth it. In my case, because I am as driven by my research as I have been, as I am, it has been worth it. But I know that it is not for everyone. I know friends in academia who have left,
mm,
and I think that was a wonderful decision for them because they are much happier now doing what it is they are doing in the corporate world, various other sectors, and that they have not looked back. And so one also needs to know when it is time to say, I've tried my best, this is not for me, or whether there is a point and purpose in pressing on. And that again comes down to knowing what they want out of this journey.
Uh, I applied for 100 jobs, I think, before
Sure.
I got a postdoc in Japan.
Right.
And actually, the job application rate goes side by side with the the research reviews, the peer reviews, right? Because
Sure.
they are indication of the amount of interest in your
Mm.
work, in your CV, right? Uh, and that should have told me in the beginning that I probably, for myself at least, right, I should not have done that PhD, right? I mean,
Mm.
why do a PhD on the Bukit Ho Swee
Sure.
fire in Singapore when Singapore history is such a tiny field, and when and this was something I did not know at the time, but
Mm.
the Singapore universities do not hire any more faculty who teach or research on Singapore, right?
Mm.
They get adjuncts, they get part timers to do it. Um, and I wanted to be in Singapore. I
Sure.
wanted to do a topic in Singapore. So, by that reckoning, I mean, I would have taken a different approach from you, Darinee. I probably would not have done a PhD, or if I had wanted to do a PhD on Singapore history, I would have wanted to think about a career outside of academia, right? Because if I had stayed on, right, where would I be? You
Mm.
know, how far can I go?
Sure.
If the only way I can go up is to be an administrator, you
Mm.
know, uh, and that would not be why I joined academia in the first place.
Mm.
Um, maybe we should talk about something a bit more positive. Tell us about some of the research you've done that since your PhD that has, rekindled that love for research.
Sure.
Mm.
So the book has been keeping me busy
Mm.
since the PhD, and that has been 7 years now since PhD, and I'm close to sending it off to be
Right.
published. So that's something that is great. It's positive, and there is light at the end of the tunnel. One needs to stick through and persevere with the process. But alongside that, I've also been engaged with several other projects. So, for instance, I got back to my first love, as it were, my first interest, as it were, on Tamil reform movement spanning British India and Malaya, when I submitted a book chapter for publication earlier this year. So this was an invited chapter for the Cambridge Companion to Periyar, who is one of the foremost reformer figures to come out of South India, and his impact on Tamil consciousness and Tamil reform in Singapore. So that was a project that I had the great opportunity to work on recently. But besides that, I'm also engaged in concluding two other journal articles. One is on Tamil schools in Singapore as sites of placemaking and their significance, and the other is on coconuts, namely specifically coconut cultivation in Singapore and what it can tell us about the nexus between ecology and political ecology. So this is another great example of a topic that is very much on the fringes of what we would expect, but that again intersects in important yet interesting ways with an already established corpus of scholarship out there, namely on state, society, political transitions, and their impact on the environment.
Coconuts in Singapore, you mean, right?
Yes, coconut cultivation in
Mm.
Singapore.
And it's probably possible. I mean, there's already an existing group of scholars who look at coconuts. Strange though that might sound.
Right, right. Although
Uh-huh.
usually from a scientific point of view rather than historical,
All right.
it has not been something that has interested
Uh-huh.
historians generally.
Would this be agriculture historians or environmental historians?
Environmental historians,
Mm.
but even so, I think there has been more of a focus on other types of plantation agriculture, particularly rubber. Right? One doesn't automatically think about coconut plantations,
Uh,
even though they were significant in Singapore at one point in time. So the purpose of this article is to say that, look, um, we can look at the tried and tested, but alongside that, there are also these hitherto unexplored perspectives that nevertheless show us certain things state and society intersect at certain points in time.
mm. And we were talking about these research projects earlier, right? Like these were sort of fortuitous projects. People approached you, or you thought about the. I mean, what is the process of thinking here that leads you to these subjects?
So, for instance, the project on Tamil reform movements was something that was an extension of my earlier work. And because I was known for that work, because I have a paper out there with Modern Asian Studies Journal, um, I've already sort of established a reputation there. And so it was easy for scholar colleague to approach me for that particular topic. But with Tamil schools, for instance, that was very much my own idea and something that I had looked at in a very preliminary basis during the MPhil. I worked on that topic for a paper, and I told myself I'll get back to it at some point, and I just never did. But when I got time to think about what I want to do for my next project, and by way of drawing out plans for that project, this theme resurfaced. And I thought, okay, now perhaps it's time. There has been sufficient time between the last time I looked at it and now. that I believe I can do it justice, and so I returned. With the coconuts project, this was again an instance of um, being presented with an opportunity, but being given a blank canvas to be able to do whatever it is and however it is I wanted to fill that canvas. So this was a colleague and former teacher of mine, Tim Barnard, from the history department, who said, we've got a volume coming up on plants in Singapore and Singapore's history. Would you be interested in contributing a chapter? And I sat down and thought about it, and the most natural link between my work and plants was coconut trees, because coconut trees are a source of alcohol, toddy, and that got me thinking about coconut trees in a broader sense. You know, is it a natural aspect of the landscape, as natural as we would expect it to be, or is there some degree of planning that goes into the
Mm.
coconut trees that we see around us? And that spawned, therefore, a related area of inquiry, which shows just how much research sort of branches out into new and exciting other fields or other areas of research.
Mm. Tell us, Darini, how do you feel when colleagues or people who you never met before approach you to contribute a paper or a topic, and the work that you do with them collaboratively together, right?
Mm.
To bring it to publication. How is that experience? How is that feeling?
Oh, it feels great. We were talking about affirmation, and affirmation doesn't
Mm,
always come in the form of
mm,
an A or feedback along the lines that we would expect, uh, you know, feedback to take, the kind of forms that we would expect it to take. Instead, it comes in these kinds of ways as well, when colleagues that one has not heard of, one has not met in a long time, has not talked to in a while, come back and say, oh, look, I've got this project in mind, would you be keen? Which shows you that, there are people out there who are taking an interest in your work, and that research is therefore relevant to more than the immediate circle that you had intended it for. So it's always a great feeling. But the point to be made here is that it doesn't come easily, it doesn't come quickly. One needs to slog away at it years on end,
mm,
often without an end in sight, before these opportunities come around. So if one wants a quick fix, solution or instant gratification, really research is not it.
mm. When
Yeah.
someone perhaps, right, someone approaches you, what is your, you know, initial response? What is your usual response to them?
I usually feel a sense of trepidation,
Uh-huh.
if I'm being very honest. The first thought I have is, am I going to be able to do this justice? Um, I don't usually turn down topics, which is again not very prudent or practical. Instead, I find myself being intrigued by almost every invitation that comes along,
Wow.
especially if it's not something I've thought about. Because, again, this goes back to personality types.
Mm,
The kind of personality that I am, for me, it's like working on a puzzle, and I cannot say no to it. But I think with um, escalating workloads, particularly with teaching to juggle alongside, I've had to force myself to be selective about what I take up. So 2 years ago, I had signed on to do an NHB project on literature, Tamil literature in
uh,
Singapore, because it's something that has always resonated with me. It is related in many ways to what I do in terms of research and teaching. But 6 months in, I realized that I did not have the time to put into that project, and that it would be unfair to remain on board. And so I told the team that, as exciting as it is, I have to leave, and perhaps look forward to collaborating with you at a later point in time. I think a similar um, case can be made of our collaboration on
yeah, I was gonna
History
say
99, our
that.
mission, right?
Mm,
Although I think I was better able to manage my time for that project.
Yeah. Do you remember what you said when I asked you?
I don't, but I suppose you do.
No, I mean, you said yes immediately, and you sounded quite enthusiastic. So
Yes.
you were intrigued, I guess.
Yeah, no, so you see, this is my natural response, and I think I've
Uh,
had to hold back and
right.
really,
Yeah.
dial down on that enthusiasm.
Dial down on the enthusiasm
Because
to
you know,
protect
you
yourself, right? Really.
to be actually more than protecting myself, to be able to do justice. I think
Mm,
it's really unfair to be in a group project type situation and to overcommit and then to underdeliver.
yeah.
But it's something that comes with experience, and I think when we see how we work, for me, I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and I want to do my best for everything that I take on, which is again, not the best way to go about it.
Yeah.
So one learns then to say no, grudgingly, reluctantly, but one needs to in order to do their best what they can.
I think I got a sense of that, right? While we were working on the Sri Narayana mission project together with, the others. And I thought that went fairly well. Uh, I'm still in touch with you, you know.
Yes.
And that was a time that was quite difficult for you, I guess. You were having a baby and, you know, right? You're on maternity and
Sure.
trying to fulfill your commitments. You contributed to the project. That's what I wanted to say. And the other thing I wanted to say was is that the working together with others is like a vetting of a
Mm,
job, a role in the team, right?
mm,
I mean, the way that you work with others tells others about you
right.
and whether they want to continue this collaboration.
Sure.
So absolutely critical, you know, to do these collaborations fairly and equally, to contribute,
Yes.
to play your role, pull your weight. I've had so many collaboration where the other members do very little.
Mm,
And I've also had collaboration where, I find that, okay, this is a person I want to work with in
mm,
future, right? Which is very
sure.
gratifying because when you find someone who is a good collaborator, you want to keep them.
Right.
Yeah. So that,
Absolutely.
I think that's very important in academia after the PhD, right? Where
Sure.
you have to go beyond your initial research, which is really only like a apprenticeship, right?
That's right.
To get your degree, and you got to chart your own ways forward, and you are always going to get all kinds of collaborators, right? Who surprise you by writing to you,
Mm,
but then gives you a new experience, right?
mm,
Okay,
mm, mm.
the iron bowl and the being selective and do justice. Tell us about the balance between teaching and research.
Yeah. I'm still trying to find my own balance.
Mm-mm. Well,
I
what
think
is it
it's
like,
a
in the last 5 years or so as a
mm,
fairly young academic? What has the
sure.
experience of working in a university been like for you?
It has been amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I think it has been just the kind of evidence I was looking for, that this was right for me. Actually, I wasn't looking for that evidence, but it's good to have it anyway.
Uh-huh.
Um, you know, what I like about it is the flexibility that it gives. I mean, of course, teaching time is structured; it is already there, and there isn't much of negotiation that one gets to do with the courses that one is allocated. But having said that, my point of comparison is school teaching. And if we were to compare it to junior college or secondary school teaching, then there is an ocean of difference to be talked about, because at university level, besides the time that is timetabled for lectures and tutorials and seminars, the rest of the time is really about setting your own targets and being disciplined about what you're going to do, again with that blank canvas. And that has been empowering for me. It was not always empowering because I found myself bogged down with teaching to begin with. Again, being the perfectionist that I am, I spent myself or rather, I found myself thinking about my teaching all the time.
Mm.
You know, I would be thinking about innovating every aspect of lectures, every aspect of tutorials, redesigning assignments. And that took me about 2.5 years to overcome. I wasn't convinced that it had to be overcome to begin with. It was only when I found myself on the verge of burnout that I realized that something had to give, because I realized that I was getting to that point of burnout because I was being understimulated in the area of research. So when that realization struck, I realized that I am going to do my best by my students anyway. And that, I don't have to keep reinventing the wheel every time I teach to be able to do that. When that realization struck, it was empowering, because I was not looking at my teaching materials with a sense of apprehension anymore. I was looking at them with the perspective of someone who has done it once before, who knows the grind, and who was confident enough to be able to do it subsequent time while still keeping the excitement alive. So the last year or so has been very instructive in that regard, because I think I've been able to strike a better balance between finding time for my research, writing, and at the same time, keeping up with the rigors of teaching. I teach 5 modules in a year.
Mm.
It really comes down to how much one does outside of curriculum time for the curriculum, but also, in terms of um, qualitatively improving the experience. So we often think that the more time we spend on teaching or preparing for teaching translates into better quality. I realize that that is perhaps not the issue. Right? That
Mm.
one can make qualitative changes without necessarily putting in more time into preparation.
A friend of mine was just telling me about the huge issues he had, with AI, with Chat GPT, students using those things to turn in their work. Have you had issues like that?
Oh, yes,
Mm.
we do. Especially because I teach arts and social sciences modules, and they're all essay based for the most part. So the challenge then has been to, one,
Mm.
think about new assignments that are Chat GPT proof, or AI proof in a sense, as well as how we can improve existing modes of assessment so that we're better able to sift through those submissions that are, dubious.
Mm.
So in that regard, I have had modules like What's Cooking, the course in which I teach food cultures in South Asia, where I designed a mode of assessment that requires students to research a particular South Asian dish, source the ingredients in question, think about ways of preparation and the cultural significance of the dish in question, cook it, and make a video documentary of the whole experience. So this takes away much of the cheating that can otherwise be done through ChatGPT, use of AI in the traditional essay format. Of course, it's not a standalone assignment.
Mm.
There is still an essay component at the end
Mm.
of the semester,
Mm.
which tests students on bread butter skills of writing and being able to present themselves in written prose. But diversifying the kind of modes of assessment that we have in our courses, I think, is definitely a prudent way to minimize abuses that can occur with the use of AI.
Yeah, or the essay could be kind of a response or a link to the
Yes,
video documentary as well, right?
yes, that's right.
Right. Yeah. A way to make every piece of submission more personable, more personalized, right?
Yes,
Mm.
that's right.
Yeah, I think that's a very good idea. Um, and probably more interesting to the students themselves, right?
Yes,
Because I think it's not so much the technology that's the issue, is probably the students. I mean, it's kind of dialectical, isn't it?
yes, it is.
Uh, I mean, I was just telling my friend, why would students want to do things like that? You know, take the shortcut and deprive themselves of the experience of learning something, of doing something themselves, right? Yeah, I mean, the university experience is a quite a precious experience, right?
Yes, it is.
And it's not something that you can replicate in future. You know, if you lose it, it's probably one of those things once in a lifetime. Mm,
Absolutely. I
mm,
think there'll always be, a small group of students
mm,
who want to put in minimal sort of effort um, and get away with it. But
mm.
the vast majority of our students, I'd like to believe, are not like that.
Right.
But they do need to be drawn into the learning experience. And traditional modes of assessment don't always do it for them.
Mm,
It's, I think, a very small group of students, again, who are enthused by the prospect of writing an
mm,
essay. For the most part, students are looking for innovative experiences that leave them with transferable skills and perspectives. So the challenge for educators then is to really think about redesigning the course
yeah.
and
Mm.
um, to reflect these opportunities for learning.
In line with that, if you design a course that is an elective that anyone can take across the faculties, the schools, then you are likely to have more cases of these sorts of, relying on AI, right?
Yes.
Um, I don't know. I mean, it's not my job to think about a solution, but how about getting courses where you it's not a cookie cutter kind of course, but a
Yes.
course where students can do something that they are really interested in. That's my
Yes.
thought anyway. It's been wonderful talking to you, Darinee. I really enjoy the discussion about the importance of personal interest and the importance of personality, really, right? That academia, I think, has to give room for personality for different kinds of people uh,
Mm.
in the system,
Mm.
and not just the kind that would look to just go up the ladder and you know uh, people who have a real desire to do research. That can only be good for academia, right? Any idea when your book is coming out?
Uh, I'd like to think mid 2025, if not end of
Okay,
the year
that's
next
pretty
year.
soon.
Yes. Yes.
So all the best
Yes.
for that
Yes.
book.
Thank you.
And the coconut one is done, right? You are going back to the
Almost
okay.
back to the
Uh,
roots, as it were.
yeah, I would like to read that one because I was doing a podcast the other day on the other channel, and someone was telling me about coconuts in the eastern part of Singapore,
Hmm.
right?
I
That
see.
growing coconuts,
Yeah.
things like that. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, Darini. We should definitely catch up soon.
Yes, looking forward to it. It's always wonderful to chat with you, Karthik, and thank you for this opportunity.
Let's arrange that. See you soon again, Darini.
See you soon.
Bye bye.
Bye.